Well, it's almost the new year, and I wanted to be able to share something with you to bring you into a new chapter or a new threshold in your life. I'm not really big on New Year's resolutions. I feel like sometimes they can set us up for disappointment in unhelpful ways. I'm really a fan of visioning and manifesting and those kind of things where we can bring into reality our deepest desires. But I think when we put things on the map in the beginning of the year and life unfolds in ways that are unexpected, we can feel disappointed. So I think there's a healthy way of managing expectations going into the new year that I'm really supportive of. And one of the things that I really like doing, which moves away from what I would call, in some ways, toxic positivity around New Year's resolutions, is a more healthy, grounded, and realistic way of coming in tune with our shadow side of ourselves. So a lot of people in sort of transformational leadership work and coaching sort of focus on sort of the light side, or the things that are again more positive focused, or strength based, which I also promote in my coaching work. But I actually am a really firm believer of focusing on our shadow side too, which is the complementary side to the things that are more outward or more extroverted. We also have this more inward and internal and perhaps introverted aspects of ourselves, or the things that we suppress and repress based on social messaging and expectations that are around us. And so doing shadow work is a really helpful way to balance out those sides of ourselves, to make us more aware of our authentic identity that becomes more in line with the things that we want to experience and achieve in our lives. So the more that we have a genuine sense of that balance of sort of yin and yang, which I love the image of yin and yang, which literally means the sun side of the mountain and the shadow side of the mountain. So today we're looking at that shadow side. So what I want to share with you today are just some very helpful questions and prompts that you can do either in a journal or out loud, maybe following this video and pausing as I share each one, and giving some time to answer these questions or prompts for yourself as you move into the new year. They will help you to identify things that are sort of below the surface in your psyche, below the surface in your sense of identity, in your life narrative, in ways that I think will really place you on a really balanced and grounded pathway moving forward. So I'll share these, and I'll also share the citation that I'm getting these from. I've used a lot of different prompts in my own self journey is moving into the new year, but I really liked this particular list of questions. So I just did them for myself over the course of several evenings during the holiday break when I had a quiet moment to myself. So I hope that you find a quiet moment too. So here they are. Feel free to pause as you hear these and reflect. I'll read through them rather slowly. So number one, how would you describe yourself? Number two, how would other people describe you? And how do you feel about that? Number three, what are your best and worst character traits? I would replace worst, that word, with areas of growth in your character traits that you might identify. Number four is, what do you like or dislike about yourself? And this isn't meant to be sort of an overly critical question of, wanting to change things about yourself that perhaps you can't change, but maybe things that, again, you want to have as an area of growth. Number five, what part of you doesn't feel heard? I loved this one. This was a really powerful one for me. It kind of allows you to go back to perhaps aspects of your inner child that you haven't been able to communicate with or have suppressed. You may stay on that one for a long time. I know I did. And number six, what would you like to say? Thinking of that person that you feel is not being heard within you, what would she want to say? Number seven, what makes you happy? Number eight, who do you trust the most and why? Number nine, do you have issues with trust? And if you are taking this list of prompts, most likely you are a very self-aware person who has thought of some things, and perhaps there are trust issues in your life, even just trusting of yourself. So for others who don't engage in these kind of questions, that's a really tough question to answer, but I think the clients I work with, actually, this is a really great question for us. Who do you trust the most and why? And do you have issues with trust? Number 10, what things trigger you the most? Again, my audience are people that talk about this a lot. There are things that trigger us that we have responses to in an embodied way that really speak to deeper areas of grief or trauma that we haven't shed light on. And why are these things a trigger for you? Number 11, what things are you judgmental about? And then 12, how do you pass judgment on yourself? And 13, when was the last time you felt let down? And why? I think this is a really telling one too, because the clients I work with, we have high expectations and standards for ourselves, but we also have high standards for other people. And oftentimes it causes us to feel let down. So assessing those standards and those expectations that we've identified and whether they're sustainable or whether the people we have in our lives maybe aren't the kind of people that we need in our lives. And in that reason, that is the reason why they are not sort of living up to the standards that we have. So yeah, that's a big question, how judgment navigates and moves in our lives. Number 14, who has the most influence over you in your life? And is it a healthy influence? 15, how often do you lie to yourself or others? I think this is a big one. I don't lie as much as I used to. I would say maybe limit information or lie in cases because I didn't want to let people down. And I would rather sort of give a partial truth than to feel that I wasn't able to sort of please the other person. And so this is a big one where I'm not as interested or not as needing other people's validation. So I don't need to give something other than the truth. And that's been really liberating for me. So how often do you lie to yourself or others? 16, is any part of you in denial? That's a big one. And because if you're able to identify that area or areas, it shows that you're actually moving in a space beyond that denial because you're actually able to identify it. That's a really big one. What is your biggest fear and why? I hadn't answered that question in a while for myself, and I think it was really important for me to ask myself that because I think our fears, in particular with women leaders that I work with, our fears are what prevent us from stepping out more boldly into our lives, into our careers, into our relationships, because of this fear of not being valued in the way that we feel we deserve or not feeling heard because of past experiences of not being valued or heard. So biggest fear and why. That's a really important one. What irrational fear do you have and why? What grudges do you hold and why? And are they rational? Do you hold on to any resentment? Toward whom and why? And that was number 20. So those are 20 prompts or questions, self-reflections to help us explore that shadow side. Some of those areas in our life that are these pockets of unexplored terrain, or perhaps terrain that we avoid because it takes deep work to acknowledge them or to even give language to. So I love working with clients who are wanting to explore their shadow side, wanting to explore questions like this. This is just sort of a tip of the iceberg of some of the things that I do with my clients. But it's hopefully a affirming exercise to do as we move into the new year. I know I enjoyed it. I was just on my journal on my bed going through these myself. I think they're important to do at pivotal times and seasonal changes like the one that we're in right now. And if it's something that you want to look into more deeply or have a conversation partner to do it with, I would love to journey with you. I have a couple coaching programs this year moving into 2025. The most important one that I'm thrilled to be offering is called Goat Walkers, which are for women leaders who are navigating between worlds. I'll link in the description the page on my website that goes over that. That's a 3-month coaching program. Most of my coaching programs are 3 months because I like to journey with my clients over a longer period of time that enables us to develop a rapport and also some really rich, deep self-realizations along the way. And of course, there's always opportunities to do an exploratory call or a crisis call if needed. But I'm looking forward to journeying with you in the new year. Bye-bye.